What's going on, everybody? Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com, and unfortunately we are meeting under those circumstances that we do not like. The Dallas Cowboys lost in Week 10 to the Minnesota Vikings, 28-24, the final score. The Cowboys wore those road blues that people don't like at home. People think they're cursed, but you know what? They overcame a black cat the week before on Monday Night Football, so I don't think the jerseys were an issue. No. The issue is something that has been an issue for a long time, if you ask a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans. The issue is something that has been a prevailing issue, and people are starting to get frustrated. Dallas Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett, we all know, is in the middle of a contract season. In fact, he's past the middle. The Cowboys are 9 games into the season. Does Jason Garrett only have 7 games left? Maybe a little bit more if you count the playoffs. Who knows? The Dallas Cowboys are in first place in the NFC East. But this game against the Minnesota Vikings, it was there. The Cowboys could have won this game, and a lot of people feel that way, but they butchered it with their own coaching decisions. Now let's look at a few moments from this game that really have people scratching their heads. The first I want to highlight is on the Cowboys' third possession of the game. Now consider that the Cowboys, on their first 3 possessions of the game, they crossed the Minnesota Vikings 50-yard line. On the first, they made it all the way to the Minnesota 39-yard line. They elected to kick a field goal. Brett Maher, no good from 57. Hey, you know what? Some people had some issues with that, but you want to get points. I don't have the biggest issue with that. The second possession, though, the Cowboys get the ball down to the Minnesota 48-yard line. They have to punt on 4th and 4. I don't have a problem with that. You're barely across the 50. That's cool. Now we're at the third possession. All right. The Cowboys at this point are trailing 14-0. The Vikings have scored touchdowns on both of their possessions to this point. The Cowboys have not. And so 14-0, it's 4th and 4 on the Minnesota Vikings 40-yard line, and the Dallas Cowboys decide that they need to punt. Now this is kind of hard to understand for a lot of reasons. The first reason is that you're on the 40-yard line. You have 40 yards separating you from the end zone. You have the number 1 offense by DVOA entering Week 10. You have Dak Prescott, who's playing at an MVP level. You're averaging all these yards per play. Why would you not feel confident that you could pick up 4 yards to try to move the ball and keep your touchdown drive alive? That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that 2 possessions before, the Cowboys elected to kick a field goal from the 39-yard line. They were 1.5, 2 yards if you want to be generous, yards further back on this third possession. And 1.5 to 2 yards is enough to make you punt? Really? You have Brett Maher. That dude can make this thing from Pluto if it were still a planet. I mean, 1.5 to 2 yards, that's just really hard to understand. Jason Garrett addressed this on Monday in his press conference, and the answer was just kind of hard to totally understand.
It was a little longer. Typically his range is inside the 40-yard line. That's an area where we think, and I think that was just outside the 40, so there's probably 1.5, 2 yards difference between the two.
So you look at this, and the Cowboys, they decide to punt, and they punt on their third possession, on their second possession. They missed a field goal on their first possession. So that's 3 possessions to start the game for a team that wants to start fast, where they come away with no points. And that was something that bothered a lot of people. But the really big talking point all week long was what happened on 2nd and 3rd down on the penultimate possession. By the way, Disney Plus dropped this week. I know this isn't technically on it, but I didn't know what the word penultimate meant until Game of Thrones. All right, that show taught me the word penultimate, so even though it had a terrible ending, thank you so much, Game of Thrones, for teaching me something. Anyways, the penultimate possession of the Dallas Cowboys offense against the Minnesota Vikings, you know the situation. It was 1st and 10 from the Minnesota 19-yard line. Dak Prescott finds Amari Cooper to pick up 8 yards. Awesome. It's 2nd and 2. The Cowboys are driving. They're down by 4. They need a touchdown. It looks like they're going to get it. This game's going to cap off an amazing performance by Dak Prescott, going to put him squarely in the MVP conversation. And on 2nd and 2, the Dallas Cowboys decide to establish the run. What are you doing? Why are you running the football at this point? To this point on that drive, Dak Prescott was 6 of 7 for 79 yards, and you took the ball out of his hands. Now, the Cowboys explained to everybody that the reason they did this was because they wanted to burn some clock. They were worried about giving the ball back to the Minnesota Vikings with too much time left because, hey, the Cowboys hadn't been able to stop the Vikings all night long. I kind of get that. I understand where you're coming from. Your number 1 priority really needs to be scoring a touchdown, so you shouldn't be considering anything else. Yet, if you want to sell me that, I will buy it to the slightest degree. However, the Cowboys don't pick up any yardage on 2nd down. And by the way, for a team that wanted to supposedly run the clock, they snapped the ball with about 20 seconds left on the play clock. If you want to run the clock, don't you want to, run the clock? Anyways, 3rd and 2 after no gain, the Cowboys decide to snap the ball with about 20 seconds on the play clock. Again, how can you tell us? How can we expect all of us to believe we're all super smart, we're all geniuses? How can you expect us to buy what you're saying that you wanted to run the clock when you snap the ball with 20 seconds left in both situations? That's not going to fly, bro. All right, so the Cowboys on 3rd and 2 lose 3 yards. And all of a sudden, you're limiting Dak Prescott, who has been spectacular, to one play to save you. And unfortunately, Dak Prescott was not able to, but then things got even worse for the Cowboys, all right? The Cowboys were able to use all 3 of their timeouts, stop the Vikings, get the ball back, and on the punt return, Jason Garrett admitted on Monday, the day after the Cowboys lost, that there was miscommunication among the Cowboys staff with punt returner Tavon Austin in terms of how he should handle it.
The part of it that we didn't communicate well enough was just simply, if you do feel like you have a good return opportunity, take advantage of it, catch it and go north and south and get as much as you could. So we did a poor job as a staff making sure he understood that.
Tavon, as you know, calls for a fair catch despite the Red Sea parting in front of him, and the Cowboys could have gotten about 10 yards closer to try that Hail Mary that probably wouldn't have worked, but it's the principle that counts. You can't be doing these things. These are some egregious errors for any coaching staff, let alone one that might be in its last half of a season in terms of coaching for this particular team. It's hard to understand, but somehow, some way, this is the boat that we have found ourselves in. The Cowboys are going to have to rebound hard this week against the Detroit Lions. They're on the road for their next 2 contests in the 3-1-3, and then at New England to take on the reigning Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. They've got their work cut out for them as Thanksgiving Day approaches. We'll have you covered all week long, as always, at bloggingtheboys.com, your home for the best Dallas Cowboys coverage on the internet. Make sure you listen to the Blogging the Boys podcast feed. Go subscribe. You can hear us talk about America's team all the time. And make sure you subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, where we give you all sorts of film breakdowns and discussions, and every now and then Disney Plus and Game of Thrones reference. You know, that's how we roll. Make sure, though, above all else, that you have a fantastic day. You know why? Because you deserve it. We'll see you next time.